So we're going to come back to example number 1 and example number 2. What I want you to write down first are the notes. So simplifying square root notes with variables. I know the steps are very lengthy. However, I highly recommend that you write your steps completely out, because remember, you can use these notes on your quiz, which will be Thursday because we don't have school on Friday, and on your test, which will be next Thursday. So step 1, when you're simplifying square roots with variables, the first thing you're going to do is follow the same steps to simplify the number part of the square root. You're going to factor the number, you're going to circle the pairs, etc. The new step is going to be step 2. Okay? Step 2, determine how many pairs of each variable there will be and if there will be any left over. For example, if you have an even exponent will completely cancel with that square root, and you'll have half that amount. And I'll show you what I mean by that in just a second. An odd exponent, you'll have one that is going to be stuck in the radicand, the variable, and then the rest of the variable pairs will go to the coefficient. Step 3, you guys know this. Pairs move to the outside, leftovers stay on the inside. Step 4, simplify. So, what I mean by the even exponents, and I'm going to write this underneath here in green. You do not have to write what I'm writing. So let's say that you have the square root of a to the 4th. Now, that exponent, is that odd or even?
Even.
Even. Because it is an even number, that even number is going to completely cancel out with the square root. So what's half of 4?
2.
So it's going to cancel, and it's going to come to the outside as a squared. That's not how. So it'll just cancel and be a squared as a coefficient. Nothing will be left on the inside. So another way to look at that would be like this. If I would write out a, how many times would I have to write it out?
2 times.
How many?
Twice.
4, because I have 4, right?
Do you have 5th hour's clipboard?
Yes. So basically, if you have a to the 4th, it's basically writing out a times a times a times a, 4 times. Well, what do we do with our factors then? We circle the pairs, right? Each pair cancels and moves to the outside. So how many a's would I have on the outside? 2. So what's another way of writing a times a? A squared. So really, this and this is the same thing. This just, the bottom way, just requires less steps. Like I said, you don't have to write that. We're going to show that in our example problems. Then what I'm going to write in the red, you do not have to write either. So let's say that I have a, the square root of a to the 3rd. Now, do I have an odd exponent or an even exponent? Odd or even? The 3. Odd. So an odd exponent means I'm going to have one left over in the radicand, then half of the remaining pairs. So what that looks like is this. If I'm going to have one left over in the radicand, I'm going to make sure I go ahead and put that 1 in the radicand now. So take 1 away from 3. Take 1 away from 3. 2. What's half of 2?
1.
So how many a's am I going to have as the coefficient? 1. No, you don't have to write what I'm writing now. So another way of looking at that would be like this. How many a's do I have? 3. What do I do with my factors? Circle the pairs. Once I circle the pairs, this a cancels and moves to the outside. But the a that did not have a pair is stuck on the inside, right? So it's the same thing. And I know I just showed you a lot of extra steps, but it's going to make your life a little bit easier when we get into our examples here. Okay, so these are the 4 steps that we're going to follow when we go to simplify square roots with variables. So now I want you guys to go ahead and back to example number 1.
No.
Now, example number 1, we're going to always start off kind of easy. So our first example is the square root of 72a to the 5th power.
We can't do anything. I'm scared.
So we're going to follow step 1. Step 1 says to go ahead and factor our number, our radicand number, how we normally would. So what 2 numbers can I multiply together to get 72?
9 and 8.
So what about for 8? Kaylin, what can I multiply together to get 8? Okay, keep going.
Circle the 2. And then 2 times 1.
Okay, and then what about for 9?
3 and 3.
Okay,
And circle the 3.
now, from here, we're going to come up. We're going to write our equal sign. We're going to write our square root sign. We're going to first focus on our numbers that we circled. So we're going to write out our factors as normal. 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 3. Now, you have 2 choices you can do here. You can write out the A 5 times, or you can refer to step 2 in our notes. I'm going to refer to step 2 in our notes. It's just easier for me. So the first thing from here that I'm going to do is go ahead and circle my pairs as I normally would. My pairs will cancel with the square root sign, and they move to the outside. So what am I moving to the outside here?
Okay.
And what else is canceling? What else did I circle? The 3. So what's 2 times 3? 6. Now, before we move on, we need to worry about our variable. Okay? So, according to our notes, is the exponent odd or even? Even.
What? No, odd.
Odd.
Why would you agree with
Odd.
that?
So, when you have a variable with an odd number exponent, you are going to have one variable left on the inside every single time. Just one.
Just one.
Just one. Now, what you're going to do from there, you're going to take 1 away from 5. So, if you take 1 away from 5, what do you get?
4.
What's half of 4?
2.
2. So, A to the second power goes onto the outside. Okay?
He's all kinds of confused.
I'm going to show you what that's going to look like, what that means. So that. Then what do I have left on the inside?
2.
And A. Remember, anytime you have an odd exponent, you'll have that one variable on the inside and box it. So, I'm going to rewrite this in green. You do not have to rewrite this in green if you do not want to. What that basically means, I had 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 3, and then how many A's? How many A's do I have, you guys?
5.
What do I do with my pairs?
Why so many twos?
Oh. 2s? You mean A's?
Oh. Oh.
Remember, now each of these pairs cancel out and move to the outside, right? So I have, what are my number pairs that are going to move to the outside as a single number?
2 and 3.
Which equals?
6.
Okay. How many A's am I going to have that moves to the outside?
2.
So A squared. Then I have the square root. So what do I have left on the inside?
2 and 8.
So,
What happened to your other you said you had 5 2s, right?
no, I only had,
I'm
I had 5 A's. A
I
to the
meant
fifth.
5 A's, yeah.
I had them all here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I circled my pairs.
Yeah,
They
okay.
cancel. So, or the shortcut. Because if I have like 31, like A to the 31st power, do you really want to write out 31 A's?
Yes.
No. So think about it. If you have A to the 31st, it's an odd number. Take 1 away from it, you have 30. What's half of 30?
It's 15.
When I say half, you just divide it by 2. So it would be A to the 15, right? Well, 15 times 2 is 30. How many A's do I have left over? 1. You're always going to have 1 left on the inside. Every single time. Only 1 when you do odd exponents. Okay, let's take a look at example number 2. I know it's really confusing right now. I feel that with more practice, you guys will become more confident with it. No. Don't oh no. You guys know this. So write out the square root of 50, b to the 4th, c to the 11th. The only thing I'm doing different on this example problem is giving you one more variable to work with. The numbers we know how to factor. So go ahead and factor them. What times what equals 50?
10 and 5.
Okay, so we know this part. This is all old school stuff. This is stuff we're really good at. Okay, I come up to the right. I put my square root sign. And what are my number factors that I'm going to put under there?
5 times 5.
And then what are my variables I'm going to put under there? B to the 4th times C to the 11th. Okay. Now from here, I circle my factor pairs. What are my factor pairs? 5. My factor pair cancels with the square root. It moves to the outside as the coefficient. So we're going to work with the number part of our coefficient first. So what's the number part of my coefficient going to be? What's
The 5.
the 5? Okay, now, this is where we're going to look at the variable stuff. Anytime you have an even exponent number, it is going to cancel with the square root. So anytime it is even, it will completely cancel with the square root sign. And then what does your note say? It says even numbers, half as many pairs. Well, if I have 4, what's half of 4?
2.
So that's going to go to the outside.
Mike.
So b to the 4th, it's an even number. Evens always cancel with the square root, and then you take half of it. B to the 2nd. Now, c to the 11th, odd or even? So if it's odd, I know that I'm going to have one variable c left on the inside. So take 1 away from 11, you get what? So take 11 minus 1, you get 10 because you want to drop down because we know this 1c is going to be stuck here. What's half of 10?
5.
So c to the 5th. That's my outside. So then, you'll get it eventually. So we'll get done with that. So what do I have left on the inside?
2.
2 what?
2.
2A, 2B.
Did I have an odd number exponent? Yes. So I know at least one c will be in there.
Wait, stop question. When did you know you had for 11? You only had to minus 1.
Because anytime you have an odd exponent, you always minus 1. Always.
With an odd number?
Odd number. Every single time. Okay? Okay, so go ahead and skip to example number 3 because we went ahead and wrote the middle notes. So we're going to go on to example number 3 now. Go ahead and write this down. So as I was saying, if you want to sit there and write out every variable and circle your pairs, you can do that, but it's not going to be very helpful, especially when you come to an example like example number 3. I threw a couple different things at you in this example. What are some of the differences that I did in example 3 that I did not do in example 1 or 2? Taylor?
You have a coefficient and you still have the 2, you have a bigger number for the exponents.
Good. So I have the coefficient in here. We know how to handle the coefficient. This is old news. But the variables have larger numbers. D to the 18th and E to the 31st power. So, we're going to follow the steps that we know how. Our note sheet says, factor our numbers as usual. So that means, do I factor the coefficient? No, I factor the radicand. What's my radicand?
Radicans.
6 and then 3
Your yawns are contagious.
So I'm going to put equals. As soon as I put equals, what goes first?
5.
Good. Don't forget that coefficient. 5 square root of what now?
The 2 times 3 times 3. N times D 18 times D 31st.
Okay.
Extend your line.
All right. Now we're only going to focus on our number for the moment. So my numbers, I circle the pairs. This pair joins the what? What's my coefficient right now?
5, so that's
So what's 5 times 2?
10.
All right. Now, what's the number I have stuck on the inside? The 3. So I'm going to underline that just as my own reminder. You don't have to. Now I'm going to look at my variables. The first one, D to the 18th. Is that even? So I know because it's even, it's going to completely cancel with my square root.
6.
So what's half of 18?
8. No. 9.
9. So my coefficient is going to be D to the
Oh, that is right. 'Cause it's
9. Because half of 18 divided by 2 is 9. Now, I come to E to the 31st. 31 is an odd number. So what I'm going to do, I know I'm going to have one E left because it's odd. So I'm going to underline that E because I'm going to have that one E that's going to be left. So I'm going to take that 31 and change it to a 30. What's half of 30?
15.
So it's going to be on my coefficient E to the 15th. Then my radicand, what do I have left on the inside now? 3 and
The E.
the E.
Always have one letter.
When it's odd, you will always have that one variable.
3.
Only when it's odd.
E. Oh no.
I just
The 5, that's a good question, John. So hey guys, listen. John asked what happened to the 5. Well, I skipped that step. You know how I usually write out 5 times 2? Well, what's joining that 5 on the outside? The 2. So I just went ahead and multiplied it out. Will it be more helpful if I show you that step?
No, I was just working.
Okay.
I was like, what?
If it's more helpful for me to write that step out, you guys just have to let me know. Okay, moving on to example number 4.
These look like some cheat codes for a game. What? Look like some cheat codes for a game.
Why do you have so many variables?
Because this is the point of this whole lesson, is get you guys comfortable with those variables. So example number 4, we have the square root of 450, f to the 5th, g to the 6th, h to the 7th.
What?
5, 6, 7, 8.
So,
Pesos.
right? Try to say that fast. What's the first thing I do here? Where do I even start?
The
Factor. So what's 2 factors I can multiply together to get 450?
9 and
50.
45 and 10.
Okay? Or 45 and 10. So what are my factors of 9?
3.
And then what are my factors of 50?
5
10.
and 10.
And then for 10?
5 and 2.
Do I have a coefficient initially to start off with?
No.
No. So I'm just going to put my equal sign, my square root sign, and then what are my factors that go under?
Oh.
3 and
2
times 3.
times 3 times 3
Yeah, when we said.
How many 3s? That's right so far, right?
3.
And then 2 more 5s.
And then,
Then what are my variables?
actually,
F5, G6, and H7.
And I thought I had enough of a square root line. So I have to extend that. Okay. From here, what do I do next?
circle your pairs.
Circle my pairs. Show that that pair cancels with the square root sign, and it'll become a single number in the coefficient. So what numbers am I going to have that's going to move from the inside to the outside as a coefficient?
15.
Well, what numbers though?
Oh, 3 and 5.
3 and 5. So 3 times 5 is 15. So the number that does not move anywhere is the 2. I'm going to underline that to remind myself that that 2 stays as the radicand. Now I'm going to look at my variables. F to the 5th, odd or even?
Odds.
Odd. Because it's odd, I know I'm going to have an F that is left over. Because it's odd, I'm going to take 1 away from the 5 and get
4.
4. And what's half of 4?
2.
So my coefficient is going to be F squared, or F to the 2nd. I'm just going to get rid. I'm done with that now. Now I have G to the 6th, odd or even. So what's half of 6?
3.
So on the outside is going to be G to the 3rd. Done with that. So I'm going to go ahead and show that I'm finished. I'm going to cancel that out. H to the 7th, odd or even.
Odds.
So I'm going to underline the H to know that I have one H that stays in the radicand. I changed my 7 to a,
6.
and then what's half of 6?
3.
H to the 3rd. So there's my coefficient. Now I need to do my radicand. What number do I have in my radicand?
2.
And then what variable do I have?
F and H.
F and H. Because they're the odd ones, I always have an odd variable left.
This is so much.
So you have a more possible chance to have another letter variable if you have more variables in the first problem, like in the first part. Like say for instance, like you said, there will be only one letter in your radicand, leftovers.
So let's say I had a to the 1001st power. I'm still only gonna have one A left in the Radican. Now my coefficient, I'm gonna have A to the
Okay,
500th
it's
power.
gonna-
Yeah.
Like it's gonna be that one. I mean, it's gonna be like that one. letter,
Every
but you can
single
have
time, you
more.
only have one variable left on the inside.
Okay.
Okay? If it's an odd number, sorry. Okay, let's look at the next example. Excuse me.
Oh no.
Woo!
Oh,
Ooh.
no, sir.
Yeah, I'm
That's
Okay.
too much.
It is okay. We will make it together.
That's too much.
Okay,
Nope.
what is this asking you to do?
Nope.
Multiply. So when we multiply, what's the first step we do?
Sleep.
What's the first step we do?
Factor.
No. Multiply together are, do I have a coefficient? No. So then I factor. So I'm going to factor my 6.
It's gonna be 3 and 2, and then
Hey, AJ, can you pick a voice for me today?
Yeah.
Thank you. And then what are we going to do for 35?
5, 7, 5.
Okay, and I'm going to circle those. I'm going to come to the right. I'm going to put my equal sign. What are my number? Okay, 1 square root sign because I'm multiplying. What are my numbers that I'm going to write underneath here?
The little 2 times 3 times 5 times 7.
Okay, now, when you multiply
You put the
variables with exponents, you add the exponents, okay?
So
Do you have, and we're going to do them in order, H, I, J, K, L. So K comes first. Do I have any other K besides K to the third?
no.
So I'm going to put times K to the third.
And then the M.
Hold on.
3,
So from K, we go to M. How many M's is this over here?
2, 1.
1. And then I have M to the third. So add your exponents. So it's 1 plus 3.
4.
So we're going to have times M to the fourth. And then N, how many N's do I have?
5.
So N to the fifth. Okay, I'll go ahead and give you a second to write that out. This is a hard one, I agree. It's a very hard one. And it's okay, we'll get through it. Okay, now,
You can do it.
from here, do I have any factor pairs? No. So all these numbers are going to stay on the inside. So then we go to the variables. K to the third, odd or even?
K to 3rd, odd.
So I know I'm going to have 1K left. Take 1 away from 3, you get, what's half of 2?
1.
The 1.
So I'm going to have K to the first. Do I need to write that 1 there?
No.
No. Then I go to my next variable, M to the fourth. Is the 4 an even or odd number?
Even.
What's half of 4?
2.
So I know that cancels completely. So I'm going to have M to the second. Then I go into the fifth, odd or even. So I'm going to underline my N because I know 1 N is going to be left. I take 1 away from 5 and I end up with 4. What's half of 4? So I'm going to have N to the second. So there's my coefficient. Now I'm going to come to my Radican. So my Radican, I didn't have any factor pairs for my numbers, did I? I just have 2 times 3 times 5 times 7. I don't have a calculator. Somebody's going to have to multiply that out for me.
You said what?
I got you.
So it's
6 and then 30, and that's gonna be 210.
210. Y'all agree? You agree?
I mean, I didn't put it in, but I should be right?
I don't know. I don't have a calculator.
I mean, they was such a hurry.
Okay. Now, what variables do I still have left? And an N. Because they were odd. So the odd ones get stuck on the inside.